slides to present, we can talk about any specific issues in that respect. Does that work for you, Stephen?
That works for me fine, thanks. Hello, Alex. Stephen Seamy here. I live in Tucson, Arizona. Somewhat familiar with running multi-organization efforts. So I think the actions we took down last time were 3. One of them was to schedule a follow-up meeting with Alex, so that one's good.
Yeah.
The other one we discussed about is drafting a structure for the sandbox at which we're going to, with access restrictions, how we're going to get all together. And my first cut and thought at, and apparently you were going to host this in New Zealand was the first idea, was simply break it down into a management structure that we can house schedules, actions, and shared materials. Another folder that would be called possibly demo, that Patrick, you guys could develop latest drops that work and that are meeting customer needs that Patrick can have access to that are kind of locked down. And the third and most important in terms of you guys is the development and test, the suppliers, org 1, org 2, integrated efforts. So you guys probably have your own individual configuration management, and then you integrate those capabilities. You may want to label them as a baseline, some kind of version, and label them, etc. But that was one of the ideas that we kicked around. And that's when Mark said, wait a minute, time out. We need to get Alex on the line. He's our CTO, and we want to get him dialed in. So that was one of the things we talked about. Did you want to add anything to that, Alex?
No, that's pretty much my understanding of what we're trying to achieve for the virtual staking, right? Yep.
Yeah. And then the other part of the meeting was going through the proposal, and it looks like that Kevin had grabbed some of my comments and put them in. Thanks, Kevin. But really, as we were going through the brief, it was really the identification of there's knowns, there are unknowns, and there's unknown unknowns. So I asked Mark, what other microservices may need to be developed during this effort? And he said, good questions. It kind of gets to the unknown unknowns, is we really need to know from the stakeholder sides, what are the requirements? And then the requirements will drive the data format and the data structure and the data source, and we may or may not need to do some microservice development. So this is one of those unknowns that's not in the proposal, just because we don't know what a solid identification of the customer requirements are to date. I heard Kevin mention talking to customer and requirements. We've got to get some other stakeholders involved and narrow that down because it's basically not fair. And the other things we talked about earlier was once we know that, in terms of the development, what are the goals of objectives? And there is some objectives identified on page 9. With demonstrable metrics of success defined. So we really know when done is done and when you guys are done, rather than have a customer side saying, it's kind of what I like, but I didn't like. No, let's get it more well-defined with respect to a stakeholder requirement. And the point is, we just don't know that today. So I understand your proposal has to have some kind of high-level description. But we did put in there, and Kevin captured it, that we probably need to get statement of works at some point down the road and sign off on those with more specific deliverables and a lower level of work breakdown structure, maybe to level 3 or 4. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think, thank you for that. I think you're thinking exactly in the same line where we are. It's that you just nicely summarize our kind of view on this pretty much.
Yeah, I usually come from it as a supplier side myself. So now being on the customer side, I just want to be fair. We'll try to get requirements gathered as soon as we can. And I think the key is an open conversation between customer suppliers, plural, and then we can get down that path. My concern is I look at the schedule, and if it's just, and I use the analogy of mud pies, if you just grab one mud pie and take the other one and they put it together, they both work, you slap them together, no problem. my experience has been that's not the case. Different pieces of software don't normally fit together, and then you have unknowns, which are more disjointed technologies. But what I liked about the Nextspace is, and I understand very well, the idea of the API and the common interface that's abstracted there. So there's a confidence, and then there's still some unknowns. But as long as we know what the end game is, I think everybody can be happy, and we can adjust schedules as long as we can communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Can I maybe add 2 cents to that, Stephen, if I may? So when you're saying capturing requirements, from my experience, there are at least 2 different ways of describing what requirements are. So one would be a list of statements or claims that are just collected from stakeholders, and they just basically sentences saying such and such needs to be satisfied. Another, or maybe in addition to that, there would be a business process model that would describe the entirety of who participants are, what they expect to happen and be able to do, and what sort of interactions they're going to have to narrow down the scope to what is actually we hoping to achieve. Do you think we can do both, or either, or what's your view on that?
Well, what I would think, and I guess we got to start with, I'm a very strong type visual person. On page 9, they got some objectives. Provide a compelling visual experience for real estate managers to manage and market their assets. Number 2, provide an up-to-the-minute accurate data on the assets, and I would like to add in there inventory via BIM, and make managing real estate easier and more efficient and more profitable. Very high-level objectives. What we probably need to do, so I come from the aviation industry, and you got high-level requirements, more of an operational standpoint, low-level software requirements, and then you have to have test cases traced all the way through. That's not what this is. But I think what we need on this objective level, and we probably should have some high-level requirements document, but then allows us to have use cases and scenarios with these metrics of success, so we know when done it's done. And then these should lead. And then these should lead right to what we're making the demos that you guys construct for Patrick's demo folder.
Yes.
Hey guys.
Yeah, I'm hard to work with. You'll find out.
So Mark,
that's good.
Mark, are you controlling the document?
Yes, I am.
Just scroll down a little bit more. I mean, that was like what you were saying. That was like a preamble on the proposal. That was definitely for for executive management.
Page number 9, I think it is, where the objective is.
Yeah, this is the objective. That's what I've got here.
So go down, scrolling down. Keep going, past the marketing, past execution, past the timetable. Okay, past the deliverables, because this is all the 3D building stuff, right? This is all the matrix. Now this is your matrix that we were talking about, how the buildings are treated. And keep going. And if you look at, I think it's the next one where we have all the Esri features. Kind of, we've copied a lot of the Esri features. Keep going.
Let's see.
Oh, you got to go back up. Then it's page 8. It must be page 8. I apologize.
Yeah, not a problem.
There.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the not the boilerplate, but that is the standard 3D interactive mapping product status as of today. So that's what's out there with pretty much any good 3D interactive map, and probably a few bad ones have part of that, right? Or limited. So that is like a mid-level thing, right?
Right.
Even that's like a mid-level one, which is usually.
Yeah, I would term that capabilities. That's fine.
Yeah.
And then But where I'm trying to go to is just on the, okay, so the objectives, good, which was page 9, and then your marketing. I just read this morning. So now the marketing on the first bullet there, we need feedback for the stakeholder needs. So we need to somehow build these scenarios, and then back to objectives. You know, the scenarios around the objective. I think you're talking at that level. Go up one page. Right there on objective. The scenarios and use cases around that are going to feed the demonstration capabilities. I think you have the capabilities listed, but when do we know when done is done? And you can then, we can focus our demonstrations, and those will be milestones in the project that we have.
Yes.
So I believe I'm agreeing with you, Kevin.
So
now,
Stephen,
Chris, tell me the second bullet is accurate information of data on assets, but did you want to bring this in a BIM format? Is it in a BIM format? Because my understanding of Nextspace is everything can come in, and maybe you have a generic format that you have inside the middle. I'm not sure. How does it work there, Mark?
Perhaps I could jump in just here. I want to take one step back just to the objectives and the specifications here, and just add a little to what Alex is saying, is that as part of that, if we can get user stories, including the user story of even the demonstrator, which says, you know, I am a real estate manager, my function in the business is, you know, X. I would like to be able to sit down with a client and do A, B, C, and D. You know, if we can abstract some of the, you know, specifications to that kind of user story level as well, Stephen, it's really, really helpful for us. I know it sounds tedious and almost, you know, a little, you know, banal, but it can be really helpful sometimes to understand that you know, user experience requirement as much as the functional requirements. I'm sure you've been through that process before. So,
yeah, so run through those examples, but you had on page 6 that tables of capability or functionalities. And Kevin, you also captured, you know, that we would do a systems users manual, and each one of these capabilities and how to use them should definitely be captured there for sure.
Yeah, and what, you know, I mean, that is captured from a competitive product, and I want to be cautious that, you know, not to slavishly follow, you know, a competitive set of capabilities or even workflow or user experience. So you know, that's where the, you know, user personas and the user stories come in. So, you know, what can we actually do better than here? Are there things that are redundant in there? Are there things that are missing from there? You know, when we analyze the persona and the user story.
Well, you have to think about it as a spectrum, you know. So you've got the spectrum of, I just want to have an emotional response and get emotional and excited, all the way to the other end, which is, I need to count every floor and do an average lease return on investment on every floor.
Yeah, exactly, Kevin. Yeah, and we're interested in everything from that. We need an emotional response to that level. So anything we can get in the personas, that's really helpful.
So Kevin, you said
hey, sorry guys, I'll have to excuse myself and step away from this. It was very good talk, and I'd like to continue. It's just, I'm sorry, I have an appointment. I have to go. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks,
have a
Alex.
great day. Talk soon.
Good luck, Doug. We'll talk again soon.
I guess his doctor showed up.
Yeah, that's good. That was great, though, to make that initial contact. I think Alex is very much of the same sort of disposure as you are, Stephen, to the way it's managed. I think we're all very comfortable with that and very pleased that you're involved from the sounds of it.
Yeah, that's fine, and we can set it back up again. It just sounds like a schedule issue. But Kevin, earlier on the call, you had mentioned this Wakefield, and there was a 3D group that wanted the visiting and marketing sales, which is that top end, versus the analysis group. So we need to have that spectrum from, let's just show the pretty pictures and do the sales versus let's do the deep dive on the actual data.
Yeah.
So I think we're all tracking.
And
yeah.
if you look at the current industry achievements, let's just say, of those two spectrums, you've got Esri on the geospatial analysis side. That's always been what they've done because they've been a cartographic, geographic information software company. And you've got the other side, which was Blackbird, or now Cesium, which is the globe, the 3D globe and the high resolution imagery, and then the three-dimensional buildings and the interaction of the buildings that are being shown here. So you have to ask yourself, who's your customer? What are they going to want to do with it? And, what's the end result? Are they going to, and that's, it goes with big companies or small companies, both. So what I like about Nextspace, and I am tooting the Nextspace horn now, is that Nextspace can interpret analysis, but Nextspace is able to, I think, manage data much better than any of the other products right now out there. So in the end, I think you're going to be able to accomplish both with Nextspace. I think in the end, once you guys put the, once you guys put it all together, I think you'll be able to do both. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But, doing spatial analysis and figuring out how far a building is from another building or doing a line of sight, there's a lot of functionality that we can just put off for version 2 or 3. I don't think it's going to fit for the real estate market. It's designed for sustainability or utility or whatever, So anyway, that's my take from the trenches.
Yeah, I agree. To just go on to the question, Stephen, on the BIM and how that fits in, as Kevin raised, the BIM data is something that's potentially very valuable and important. I just popped up for the sake of the exercise. So this is a BIM model, that we brought in from this library here, and so this is the very generic UI that will have the the overlay of a user experience from these election people. And so what I've done is just clicked on the VDS. This is one of the data types in here, and is the 3D BIM model that's been brought in and processed into a lightweight representation of the BIM model. It's a longer story, but it's nothing to just makes it much easier to load, store, and view. But you could load the original, what are called IFC files. But what's important to understand about the use of the word BIM is bandied around a lot, and it can be building information modeling or building information management. I prefer the latter, and there are a bunch of workflows, and it's very much an extract, translate, load process typically, where you take a model, translate it to one of these file formats, load it, translate it into a new format, which we're doing here. But the data that is actually part of the BIM process is very well specified across many different standards. So the result is that what you get out of a BIM model can vary enormously from one supplier of data to another. And in the BIM process, in many respects, is awaiting people in, say, real estate or councils or local government to say, in fact, this is the data that we need your models to have embedded in them. It's been driven from the bottom up, and there needs to be more of a top-down approach to BIM data management and requirement setting. That's just sort of an industry comment, Stephen. But to that point, deciding on what's the requirement, go back to the user, am I trying to do utilities management down to this light socket level, or what's on the board, or am I simply trying to say that there is a room here with 8 chairs of this type and a table, end of story. And so understanding that from a, what's useful will determine the way that we integrate, something like BIM data. And that BIM data may in fact come for a facilities, or asset management perspective from a non-visual system. It might come from an SAP ERP system or an Access database or someone's spreadsheets. So I just wanted to sort of raise the point that, the use of the word BIM, can open up all sorts of different avenues, all of which we're comfortable with, but we need, to do something achievable and reasonable. I think, it comes back to those user stories and what are we trying to manage, what's the actual data we need, and then layer it on later. Am I making some sense there?
Absolutely, and I just put something in the chat window. I think what you showed there was exactly very cool. Okay, what you did is you zoomed in through the visual experience right down to the BIM.
Yeah.
So in the second objective bullet there, if we just somehow added in the words inventory via BIM, then you've gone from that marketing right in through to the analysis.
Yeah. Just to that, I'll raise something new because you have touched on it. We've been investigating a really neat little tool to integrate with what we're doing for asset management in this context, and something we can talk about for the future. And what it does is it allows you to go into the building and take photographs of things, and then automatically add them to the hierarchy of the model. So, as a use case, being able to go in at a building level, take photos of the router, the chairs, the table, and itemize them with basic metadata on the spot with a mobile device, and have that uploaded against the actual 3D model of the building at a room level or a floor level, that sort of thing. So, we see a lot of opportunities to make the gathering of the base data a hell of a lot easier with mobile devices if it's linked back into a data matrix like this.
Yeah, let me see if I could come up with a user scenario or use case in real time here. Chris knows my wife's an architect. She's got an older building. They want to refinish both the exterior and do some tenant improvement on the inside. Apparently there's a document, and Mark, I saw you could have all these documents stored in there, where they identify what they want to fix. This window's broken, da-da-da-da-da-da, a list of stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So you could pull that up. The architect could then work off that as a kind of a punch list, make the recommendations, show the current owner of the building what they suggest, and with colors, textures, etc., and essentially go through that whole process. And this is kind of a nice user scenario that we tie. Okay, good. I was just doing it off the cuff here. And
no, that's an excellent one. Everyone, I'm sort of thinking through my head, how we do that with our technology, and it's essentially a perfect fit. It's exactly what you could do here. It's about rearranging these tabs into a workflow. Step 1, step 2, you might wizard it, to make it really simple at a data gathering end.
Right. The user scenarios work to the workflow. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's an excellent example.
Okay. And then the only other concern is, and we wanted Alex on the phone, was to clarify all of the data rights from the individual stuff. So I started this spreadsheet, and I've been reading Kevin's emails and trying to gather, so CC3D, you got enhanced proprietary data and visualization intelligence going forward. So it implies there's some kind of proprietary stuff there. Mark and Alex are owners and controller of Bruce. Their derivative 3D building creation license access, okay. So we have to just clarify this. The Digit Group International is the customer, and we just want to make sure that the playing field is clear and ready to go, and everybody understands that. So that's a big one. Cesium is an open architecture, so nobody owns it, and then there's a qualification. Cesium does provide CC3D proprietary code, blah, blah, blah. So we just got to get these flags all understood. Amazon Web Service, TBD. There was still the local capture partners. Do they have any issues? Don't know. So this is just stuff we need to figure out. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry, is this, which page are you referring to on the...
I went over the proposal. So for CC3D, it looks like I have page 11. And I don't know, Mark's done Kevin's done a new one there. Okay, yeah. Under page 11. Yeah, the first bullet, number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for Nextspace, looks like page 9, maybe. Let me see. Page 9 has, while Bruce has, it starts with the while Bruce.
Yes, here we are. Oh.
Yeah. Specific customization, so good. So TG, the DigiGroup is paying for you guys to do it. So we got to make sure that any ownership transfers over. And then it goes down to the next sentence. You got technology, Cesium 3D, and web services. Are there any license issues there? Yes or no? Don't know.
Right.
Let's figure it out. There was something earlier in the proposal, I think Kevin said, where is it? That, oh, it was in the email, on Kevin's email, Cesium Technology License and Cloud Services, parentheses, AGI.
Yeah. So,
administration, legal, licensing, IP for da-da-da, and Nextspace. So we just need to figure that out and make sure everything's good. Okay?
Yeah. Stephen, to that, I mean, I can give you a verbal answer on a couple of things now, but certainly, you know, if it's just presented to us as, you know, like, please clearly answer these questions, that might be a good way, and we'll, you know, write back and fulfill them. I'm quite comfortable that everyone will be fine with those things. You know, we see the ownership of the customer, you know, the specific customization of Bruce, the front-end user experience, workflow design, as created, as owned by DigiGroup. And the Cesium 3D, I don't see any big issues here. Kevin may have some comment. We have no other code than we've added ourselves, and we've done that under all the standard, you know, correct licenses for Cesium to add code to that when necessary. Amazon Web Services, I mean, we simply, that's a third-party hosting service that we use, and, you know, as far as I'm aware with our licensing, I can check again with legal, but it's you know, standard basis for, you know, building a product on top of, and there's no licensing issue. There's nothing that TDGI would necessarily need to be involved with. The Amazon side would be essentially invisible, you know, in that respect.
So in general, Mark, and you know, we're getting down the path. We just need check boxes that all the rights and license issues are resolved for the next 10, 15 years with costs. Okay. Kevin's got models. If there's cost, there's cost. Let's just get it written down so everybody knows what we're buying into and agreeing to here. So it's just one of those marks. So we talked about the goals and objectives with demonstrated metrics defined, not yet, but we got a path to do that. Development dependencies between you guys. We don't have a schedule that's detailed enough to know dependencies with risk and assumptions. We can get there. And then maybe that's going to start to uncover some of these additional APIs once, you know, because the customer requirements change late in the game, and it's like, ugh. So let's anticipate some of that. Yeah. And I think that's about it. You know, we wanted to tie in Alex to hear. He heard a little bit before he went to the doctors, and
I can relay this. I'm quite comfortable, you know, with the issues here to relay and discuss with Alex. So from here, I guess, Steve, if we could get, you know, a very clear list. These are the things that we'd like to resolve and understand. and then Kevin and I can work on a written response to those. And I, obviously I'll take it with Alex, and included in that, we would return a high-level structure for the sandbox management process.
Yeah. All right. So
answer
I have a spreadsheet that I kind of just started gathering notes on. Why don't I just share that out through Chris or something? Okay.
Perfect.
And we can just work on it together and start populating it.
Yeah. Perfect. So, from I do have to ask the question at this stage. Where are we at? I mean, we're obviously both spending time and effort on this at the moment with no contracts in place or anything like that, and that's okay. But there's a point at which we have to say, well, we can deliver this amount of information, put this amount of work, and where are we at with a legal document, a contract, and first stage of work? What do you see as the path there, Stephen and Chris?
Chris, I think that was to you. I don't know if you're on mute.
Yeah, hold on, I just got noisy over here. So I have a call tomorrow with the attorneys to go through the development agreement template. So I think we'll have something, and I'm hoping we'll have something draft this week by Friday. But that'll give us some framework at least to discuss. We're using Perkins Coie, and their office out of Chicago. So so there's two guys that are working with me on a bunch of stuff, and they're handling the agreement right now.
Right. So we've got, in many respects, the proposal here in front of us, Chris, is an MOU to which the agreement will be built around.
Yes.
And so that's great. So if we could perhaps identify the questions that Stephen has that we need to get answered for the attorneys to finish, that part of the agreement, versus the things that are, just for the project we need to know. But I think it'd be really useful if we could clearly identify the things that Stephen's asking that need to be, from your attorney's point of view, part of the, the actual proposed first agreement.
Yeah, that's fine. And Stephen will be on the call with me, so we can go through that MOU. Yeah, no problem.
Terrific. Okay. All right. Well, I guess at this stage we'll really look forward to seeing that spreadsheet, Stephen. And again, it's a real pleasure to have someone with your experience involved. That makes us feel comfortable.
Yeah, and it's looking like it's going to be successful, so that makes it all the more interesting.
Yeah. Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
This is Kevin. So I just sent you a link to cesium.com. Cesium is really an interesting company. It's this globe that's sort of been done for free. In the old days, you could either use Cesium for free and get it from their server environment, open up the file and have a 3D globe and then write all your JavaScript on top of it. Or you spend $100,000 on the software development kit, and then you use Cesium. Now it's evolved into an actual product. So they're trying to make it almost like a Google Earth Enterprise product down the road. And so that's always evolving. What's happening is they're giving us code to bridge the gaps between what they want to have in the future that they charge for and what they have today. So, and Cesium's critical for this because you can't just build your own globe, and you got to have imagery to put on the globe, and you want to change all your scenes and stuff, and they're really good at that. It's very stable. But our situation with Cesium is that when they started with buildings, they started working with CyberCity buildings, and they built their 3D tiling based on the CyberCity buildings. That's a good thing in the sense that it works with our data really well, but also they didn't really think about level of detail because our buildings are so lightweight that when you load them, you don't have to worry about level of detail. So now we're talking about BIM and higher resolution buildings and a lot of other complicated things. So there's a lot to share there on Cesium in terms of how it all works. I can assure you that fitting it into the contract will be no problem. and working out any details. I just had a call with them today. Is no problem. They know all about Nextspace. They know what we're doing. They're very supportive. So we'll be able to overcome all that. But I do want you to, feel free to reach out to Peter, who is the technical liaison with the Cesium team, if you have questions about how that's being used or the ownership. In other words, it's open architecture, so really nobody owns it. But in fact, you can do things to write code on that you do own. So I just want to kind of put that out there.
Okay. All right. Good. Did we achieve all of the objectives we wanted for this call?
From my perspective, yes. I think when we get that spreadsheet, that'll be a big help. We can provide you a written formal response. That, and I think from that perspective, yes, I think we have.
Okay. Yeah, we start filling in the holes. Sure. All right. And it's not fancy. It's not. But let me work it through Chris, and we'll get it over to you as soon as he clears it. So, all right.
Okay. And are there any further questions for us, Stephen or Chris or Kevin?
No, I just think we should try to get to the deal, because once we get to it, we'll flush out a lot of these questions about where's the Chinese wall between New Zealand and Digigroup, right? Where is Digigroup's existing technology foundation, and as or not Digigroup, but Nextspace, and as Digigroup writes into this, how they own the code. So where do they own it? How do they have access? I think those things are going to be really important, because there's a lot of applications for Nextspace, and I think there's a lot of knowledge sharing that can go between different users, which is a big plus, but also there's proprietary information and some stuff that probably makes more sense to keep secret, especially in the real estate market. So that's me. That's it for me. Peter, do you have any comments?
Not right now.
Okay, let's wait for the spreadsheet, and then we'll figure out from there.
Yep, sounds good. And we'll have something to report back to you guys on hopefully by the end of the week as well. So we'll just keep moving this along.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.